Joe Rogan sat down with the real Donnie Brasco. Now, if you don't know, Donnie Brasco is my favorite movie. Al Pacino is Lefty. Johnny Depp is Donnie Brasco. Donnie Brasco is actually an FBI undercover agent, and he infiltrates the mafia to the point of becoming a made man. He was going to become a made man, but the operation got shut down. He went deep into cover, and Joe Rogan sat down with the guy. I can't wait to show you guys this. Let's just jump right in. Let's start with this. This is him talking about around becoming a made guy and whether or not he liked this whole life, if he found it attractive. Let's get into it.
So they whacked these three guys, and the next day Sonny calls me into the club, and he said, Bruno never showed up. That was the fourth guy. That was one of the capos in Delicado. His son was supposed to come, and he didn't show. So he gave me the contract to kill him. So he said, we think he's in Florida. So he sends me to Florida to look for him, but he wasn't down there. And the deal was that if I did find him, I'd call the FBI, and they would snatch him, and we'd stage a hit. Or if they found him, we do the reverse. They'd stage a hit, but we never found them. So now, all this time, I never carried a gun. I never carried a gun in this whole operation.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that unusual?
No, because these guys don't carry guns on a daily basis. The mafia guys.
They don't?
No, because they're always getting rousted by the cops.
Got it.
Right? The only time they carry a piece is when they're going to go do some work.
Right.
So,
did you see guys get killed?
No.
I don't believe you.
So
that was the sneakiest no I've ever heard in my life.
So we let's move on.
Let's move on.
The guy was in the mob for years. He was literally in the mafia for years. He for sure saw people get whacked. He was around people who were doing that kind of work. He for sure saw it.
You made me lose my train of thought, Joe.
Sorry.
No. So we're in the club. So I get the contract for Bruno, but obviously I can't find him. Bureau can't find him.
Did anybody ever find him?
Yeah. So what happens is we're in the club one day in the Motion Lounge, and Sonny gets a phone call, and he says, hey, Donnie, he said, we think Bruno's at such at your place, but it was bad info. It was bad info. So I was asked, well, what would you do if he was there? I said, I hate to say, but Bruno probably was a dead man. And well, how could you say that? Well, because when you're given a contract, it's your responsibility that guy gets killed. And if you refuse the contract,
you get killed.
You're gonna get whacked.
So would you have had to do it?
Well,
if you found him,
I could have given it to one of the other guys to do it, but it's my responsibility.
Right.
And my mindset in Undercover is I'm not dying for a gangster.
Right.
I'll die for a citizen. I'll take a beating for a citizen, but not for a gangster. That's...
He's going to get whacked either way.
He's going to go either way.
Right.
So I'll take my shot with the government.
Right.
It's not a lot of people can't deal with that, but
I get it.
So
it's the job.
That's the job. Look.
That's wild. So if you're an undercover agent, you can whack somebody. First of all, he's like, I'm not going to die for a gangster. That's pretty gangster to say, I have to say. But he would just do it, and then he would just turn to whoever his commanding officers were and been like, well, what do you want me to do? Had to do it. Wow. Deep. I'm telling you, this guy got deep into it.
Look, I'm there to put you in jail. I'm not there to get you killed. I'm not there to kill you. I'm there to arrest you and try to, hopefully send you to jail. But I'm not going to die for you.
Right.
I'm not putting,
So it's a situation where your back is against the wall.
yeah, exactly.
Got it.
So, but that didn't happen.
Did they ever find him?
Yeah, they found him. They found him actually. I don't know if it was a year or so later. I'm not too sure, but yeah, he eventually got arrested. Yeah, he was a coke. He used coke. So,
Sloppy.
yeah. So now, now with the war going on, the bureau decides that we gotta shut the operation down. So those hits took place on May 5th. So, and prior to that, I had to sit down with Sonny Black, and he said, Donnie, the books on the Mafia are opening up in December. He said, and I already proposed you for membership into the Bonanno family, so you're gonna get inducted into the family in December. He said, so I congratulated him, thanked him, kissed him on both cheeks,
So you're going to be a made guy.
Yeah, I was going to be a made guy. Yeah.
How attractive is that life when you're in it?
Oh, forget it.
Must be so much fun.
Yeah.
Part of the problem, right?
So, no. Waking up every day to think, is today the day I go to jail or today I get whacked? No, I didn't. Joe, I didn't find it that attractive. Believe me. I mean, it's all right. They flash, they cash, you walk into a restaurant, they know who you are. You get the
VIP treatment.
You get the VIP treatment. You don't order off the menu.
Yeah.
So
There's perks.
There's those perks, but
Too scary.
I didn't want to wake up every day saying, "Do I go to jail or do I get whacked today?"
Right.
That's their mindset.
Right.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's crazy.
But I've talked to guys in that life, and they love it.
Yeah,
That's what's crazy about it.
Yeah. I know guys that.
You know what? I'm going to move on to the next clip. But you know what? It's not crazy that guys love that type of life. It's not crazy at all, actually. Because when you think about it, Sebastian, I believe his name is Sebastian Unger. He's been on the podcast as well. And he has written books about, and he's talked to many people who've gone to war, soldiers who have gone to war. And they often feel like, I wish I was back there. And the reason that they feel that way after they come home is because he explained it so beautifully. He just said, in regular society, you don't know who has your back. You don't know who's really for you. You can't really tell in civilian life. But when you're overseas and you're in Afghanistan, et cetera, you know that the guys you're with are ready to lay down their lives for you. So I could see why somebody in that life would also really like it. But I could also see where the anxiety is. It's a wild thing, man. Wild thinking about that. Obviously, this dude wouldn't go to jail or anything. Like, come on, you're an FBI guy. Obviously, you're not going to jail, but could have easily got whacked. Easily. Man, all right, let's play the next clip. This is where they talk about pretty much, if you've seen the movie, everybody that he was running with and what their fate was. And it was rarely jail. Let's go.
How do you stay calm in these situations?
Joe, I just stay who I am. I get that Sicilian in me, and you go at it when you have to, and if you don't,
If you don't, it probably seems off.
Yeah. So,
but that's got to be just nerve-wracking.
it is, because what's nerve-wracking is you always have to be on.
Right.
You can never be off.
You never relax.
No. Not many guys could say that they had sit-downs with two mafia bosses of different families, right? I used to stay at Sonny Black's apartment with him in Brooklyn. And this guy was running the Bonanno family. He was one of the top capos in the Bonanno family. But Sonny, I don't know how many hits he had. Now, all these guys I dealt with, don't forget, all these guys had hits under the belt. These weren't
right.
novice guys. I mean, they all had 5, 6, 10, 15 hits under their belt.
Mm.
I got into a fight one time in a bar with Tony Mira. Me and him against 3 guys. And he grabbed a beer bottle, broke it on the bar, and just boom, raked the guy's face. Now there's another guy. I always brings up the young undercovers. Is that this was probably the meanest guy I ever met. Flat out mean. These other guys were mean, because they killed people. But he was just a mean guy. The other gangsters didn't like him. I never saw him overindulge in any liquor. Never. And he would stab you as soon as look at you. And after that incident, I told you when I had to go around with him, I always made sure I was an arm's length away from him.
What was his name?
Tony Mira.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was him.
Now, after it was over and they found out who I was, they killed Mira. His own nephew killed him, actually.
Wow.
Because he introduced me to all the Bonanos.
Wow.
Yeah. Lefty was on his way to get killed, but the FBI picked it up on the wiretap. So they snatched him, surveillance team snatched him off the street. They killed Sonny Black. Sonny Black got killed. Yeah, he got killed. Yeah.
So all the people that had let you in.
Yeah. Tell you how Sonny Black got killed. You talk about a gangster, right? When it came out that I was an undercover, in the beginning, the mob didn't believe I was an FBI undercover agent. They thought the FBI had kidnapped me and was trying to turn me. Because we picked it up on the wiretaps and informants. But once their lawyers told them, hey, he really is an undercover agent. So Sonny Black gets a call. You got to go to a sit down. So he walks into the Motion Lounge. He had a diamond ring. Takes off his diamond ring. All right. Takes his money out of his pocket. Takes all his keys except his car keys. Puts them on the counter. He says to the bartender, I just got called to a sit down. I'm probably not coming back. Is that a gangster?
Wow.
Calls his girlfriend. And this is how we found this out. Calls his girlfriend and tells her the same thing. So what happens is that after they find his body and everything, his girlfriend calls the FBI, and she says, "I'd like to have a meeting with Donnie Brasco." And I said, "Why?" I said, "Because I got something to tell him that Sonny Black." She called him Sonny. She didn't call him Sonny Black. She said that Sonny wanted me to give him a message. They said, okay. So they fly her down to D.C. And myself and the other agents, go out to a restaurant. And she said, Sonny wanted me to tell you, this is what happened. She said, this is what happened. He got called to a sit down, and he goes into the Motion Lounge, gives his ring, his money, his car keys to the bartender, and tells the bartender, I got called to sit down, and I'm probably not coming back. And then he calls me, and he says her name, and he said, if I don't come back, he said, I want you to get in touch with Donnie and tell him I loved him.
Whoa.
And he was just better than we were. I don't hold anything against him.
Wow.
Is that a gangster or what?
That's a guy that's living that life.
Huh?
Wow.
Is that a gangster?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
Well, it kind of threw me for a loop. I mean, I had a good relationship with him. And like I said, I didn't want to see anybody get killed.
Right.
You know, even Mira, I don't want to see him get killed. I mean, although I might have done it myself. I mean, that guy was just plain mean. But, you know, that's not my job. My
Right.
job is to gather evidence, bring it to trial, and hopefully you get convicted.
Right.
That is a wild story. Now, if you are familiar with the movie, first off, if you're not, 100% go and watch that movie. You got to watch that movie. It's so good. It's so good. But in the movie, that story that he just told, that's actually Lefty that's doing it in the movie. In the movie, it's Al Pacino and he's in his house and you know, it's kind of artistic license at that point, but he takes off his ring. It's a diamond ring, puts it in a little box, takes off something else, puts some stuff away, everything but his keys, just like he's saying, because he knows he has to drive over to where he's going. And he says to his wife, he says, hey, he goes, I'm gonna go. I gotta go. Like he doesn't tell his wife, but it's the same thing. He's talking to his girl. And he says, I gotta go. He goes, hey, if I think he says, if Donnie calls, I haven't seen the movie in a while. He goes, if Donnie calls, tell him I'm glad it was him. And that was it. And she's like, okay. And then he leaves, and then they kind of have the foreshadowing that he gets whacked. But I guess in actuality, that story was Sonny Black. Now, obviously, they're doing that because Al Pacino in the movie is the big draw at the time. This is Al Pacino. This is the guy who, you know, did Tony Montana. This is the guy. This is the big actor, along with Johnny Depp. This guy, these two together. So they wanted to keep the storyline focused on Al Pacino for as long as possible because he's the famous person. But I guess it was really Sonny Black. That's wild. You know, at the same time, I love the story, Donnie Brasco. I love that movie. But listening to him say that, I like the story, but I kind of don't like this guy. You know what I mean? I support officers, you know, I support law enforcement. But when I hear this guy, and he's like, let me tell you this story about how this guy got whacked because of me. And he has a smile on his face. I'm like, oh, like, all right. But again, that's the job. That's what the job is. You gotta do what the job entails. So it's just what you got to do. I got some other clips here. He actually sat down with Patrick Bet-David. I'm going to play a couple of those. Sat down with another dude, an actual former Mafia member, which I'm really surprised about as well. But, you know, how do you feel about that? You hear him tell this story. Yeah, I'm just a little torn because, you know why? Because I'm so connected to the movie. And when you're watching these guys, Sonny and Lefty, and, you know, they're running the town. And the thing is, I guess the real thing that throws me off is that they genuinely love the guy. That's the thing, that they actually felt like, I love this guy. You know, for Sonny Black to be like, I'm going to make sure this guy becomes a made man. That's huge. That's like, I love you over the moon. I think you're an exemplary person, so much so that I think you should be joined up in the best way possible that we have to offer here, you know? But let me show you this clip here. This is him talking about it a little bit more. Love how he wears the sunglasses. He's like, Joe Rogan asks him why he's wearing the sunglasses, why he has the hat on and everything. He's like, oh, you know, my neighbors, they don't know that they're neighbors with, you know, Joe Pistone, you know, Donnie Brasco. It's like, bro, they're going to recognize you. You're on the biggest podcast in the world. Someone's going to recognize you. It's okay. It's okay. But imagine that he's at this age and he's still, you know, he says it's for the neighbors, but he's still kind of worried about getting whacked. I bet you he is. Those people have sons and cousins and family. I bet he is still worried about that type of thing. Lefty had kids, grandkids. You have no idea what those people are into right now, you know? But let's play this clip. He's talking a little bit about Sonny Black again.
Up the meeting with Trafficante, me and Sonny go to the meeting. Just me and Sonny.
Lefty's not there.
No, which ticks him off.
Why wouldn't Lefty be there?
Sonny didn't want him there.
Oh, wow.
Sonny didn't want him there.
Got it.
So I'm now in a precarious situation because he says, me and Donnie are going to meet Trafficani.
Now it seemed like there's some animosity between from Lefty to Sonny, because Lefty felt like I've been here for 30 years. When am I going to get the opportunity to kind of get my buck? So was that kind of deeper?
Oh yeah, because he's figuring he's bringing you in to meet with him. I've been a wise guy forever. I gotta placate Lefty and say, Lefty, what's the difference? I'm still your guy. Yeah. We can do this and that. So me and Sonny meet with Trafficani. Trafficani gives the okay. You guys can do what you want there. We get a cut.
They're good with it. So that's
as long as they get a cut of it. What does he care?
Got it.
He's not putting any men there to run anything.
Got it.
Then what happens is that the guys want to go out on a fishing trip. So the FBI has a boat. I said, Lefty, remember we were out in San Diego. I said, remember we met those couple girls at the bar and we bought him dinner? He said, yeah. I said, well, one of them told me your brother has a boat. I always back stuff up. So I said, let me see if I can find the number. So the next day I said, yeah, I got the number here in my little address book. So we set it up and we went out fishing, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that boat was used in another FBI undercover operation and was not supposed to be surfaced. And what happened was there was a leak to the media about the undercover operation. So the FBI had to surface the operation prematurely. And the boat was on the cover of Newsweek. And
on the cover of Newsweek?
Yeah.
I thought it was a story inside the Newsweek.
No, it was on the cover.
It was on the cover of Newsweek?
I'm sure it was on the cover.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure it was.
So when that happens, were you on the, because you were on a flight the first time you saw it, right?
Right.
So when was it when he saw it and he found out
We
about it?
We were in Miami, actually, because I remember him saying, come on, let's go to Wolfie's in Miami. I think it's a famous Jewish delicatessen.
Okay.
I mean, everybody knows it. And we go there and we sit down and, and he says, this look familiar?
Just the two of you?
Yeah. I said, it's a boat. He said, we were on that boat. I said, Left, how can we be on that boat? Which now, the name of the boat was a Left Hand.
What are the chances? So not only you find the boat's name is Left Hand.
So he said, Donnie, what's my name? I said, Lefty. He said, what's the name of that boat? He said, you think I'm going to forget that? So I said, let me see.
Wow.
I said, Left, even if it was, nobody's come after us. They were after all these politicians. And he said, Donnie, I don't know if I should tell, if I should go tell the bosses. I said, Lefty, we're still walking around. I said, look when these arrests were made. We're still walking around. I said, they don't want us. What did we do? We went on the boat. We went fishing. Had some submarine sandwiches, some heroes. That's it.
So let me ask you, is he doubting you or is he doubting somebody else on the crew that may have been a informant? Was he questioning you that moment?
Well, at that moment, he was questioning me.
He was questioning
He was.
you.
But don't forget, now I've been with him so long and nothing ever.
That's what I'm saying.
Nothing ever happened, He was saying, did she ever say that, I said, no, she just told me her brother had a boat. If we ever wanted to go out on it. So
we could, yeah.
We could.
So then you guys go, then you
and he never mentioned it to anybody.
He never brought it up to Sonny.
Never brought it up to
And they never saw it either.
No.
So that's so interesting.
Because nobody ever brought it up. He was the only one that brought it up.
Got it. So
see that moment right there, that's in the movie as well, where Al Pacino sits Johnny Depp down and he says, look at this boat. And he's tapping it. He's tapping it just like that. Look at this boat. Look at this boat. And he's like, oh, what? It's a boat. Who cares? He goes, we were on this boat. And it was such an intense moment because it was the first moment since they had met that Lefty was like, are you some kind of snitch? Are you some kind of undercover? Who are you? What's going on here? And, Donnie Brasco here, Joe Pistone, he has to really hash it out and go, come on, Left. And come on, you can believe me. And it was a combination of actually loving Donnie Brasco and also not wanting to look like a fool within the ranks of the family. Because now it's like, you let this guy take you on this boat. It's an FBI boat. You didn't look into this. And Lefty had already been clawing his way up and it wasn't being as successful as he wanted it to be. So it was like a combination of a little desperation, a little bit like, I got to trust my guy. He's my guy. And that's the type of stuff that these undercovers do, man. It is such a wild life to have to be undercover like that. Now, this is him sitting down with Mike Francia. Michael. The guy's a former made guy. He's a civilian now, but you still don't want to mispronounce his name. I'll say Francis. I apologize, sir. And funny and kind of crazy to me that he'll sit down with this guy, have a conversation like no problem. But Sammy the Bull and this guy, they have intense moments together where they're yelling at each other, they're swearing at each other. And, you know, this guy hates Sammy the Bull. If you don't know who Sammy the Bull is, he was a hitman. He snitched on John Gotti and a whole bunch of other people. He took down a massive amount of people in the mob. And, you know, it's just interesting that this guy, he's okay talking with Joe, but not with Sammy the Bull. Here, let me play this real quick.
I left because I wanted a better life. I didn't want to put my family under what my family went through. But, you know, did you see it? Because I know it's a life that's allegedly built on honor and respect. How did you see it? Being so deep undercover and being around real guys the way you were, and how did you see it?
You know, Michael, it's funny. I had to walk a fine line with Lefty because once we got under Sonny Black, Sonny took a liking to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he's the captain.
Right.
So he would confide things in me. And I didn't know, well, you know, should I tell Lefty?
Mm-hmm.
Because if this comes out later on, I can't get Lefty ticked off at me. I think loyalty went with who your friend was.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
If the guy was truly your friend, I mean, I seen this. If a guy was truly your friend, you stuck with him. But he could be another guy in the crew. And, he, you know, just because he's in your crew doesn't mean that he's your friend. And I could see guys planting, you know, little seeds with the captain, with Sonny, about somebody else in the crew that they weren't tight with.
Mm-hmm.
So loyalty went if the guy was your friend is the way I and you know it's funny because I'm thinking to myself, this guy's a made guy. He's a made guy. You know, why's he got to brown nose the captain?
Yeah.
Why is he snitching out what another guy's doing? It's not you know, do your own thing. Was there 100% loyalty? No. And honor? No. And you know what? I think I saw that with the younger guys that were in the crew versus the older guys that were, you know, in the crew.
You mean you saw less loyalty with the younger guys than the older guys?
Yes.
Yeah, I seen it that I was one of the younger guys, but I was brought up on my father who was,
but look who your dad was.
Yeah.
You know?
He was all about, you know, loyalty in that life and honor and respect, you know, to a fault, I think, in his case. But, you know, he suffered a lot over it.
You know, how many guys would have, you know, I don't mean this any other way than how many guys would have spent that much time in a can if they weren't loyal to the you know, to the society, to the organization.
Yeah, and you know, with my dad, Joe, even things he didn't agree with, he wouldn't go against because he said, you know, look,
they were the rules, right?
Yeah, I took my oath and I'll die by it, and that was the end of that, and that's how he lived.
You know, there's not many like that in the world, let alone in the society.
No, that's true. Well,
you know what? As I listen to that clip, and I'm saying before this clip, I'm saying I'm surprised that they would sit down together. But just from what he just said, it makes perfect sense. He goes, "That's the oath, and you're going to die by that oath." And you know, not with all of them. Maybe back in the day, I don't know. But you know, an FBI agent has the same type of thing. There's an oath that they've took, and they're gonna die by that oath. And maybe that's where these two connect. And honestly, when it comes to this guy. Is he still on the screen? This guy's a mobster. Like, I don't know. He still seems like a mafia guy. You know, he said he's Sicilian. He seems like he's in the mafia still. It's wild. And this isn't the only thing he's done. He's been involved with the triads and like all sorts of organizations. Like he's been living this thing. I mean, from America to Europe, just going undercover. You know, his poor wife. Poor kids. I mean, because it can just turn into anything, right? And all of a sudden you're undercover for 2 years. Man, wild stuff. But you know, let me pull up the real picture of Lefty and the real picture of Sonny Black. Let me see here. The real Lefty from Donnie Brasco. Let me see. Because, you know, sometimes you want to know, like, did they hit the mark? Did they hit the mark? Look at this. Look at this here. Look at these images right here. Look at this one. Look at this one and look at this one. He looks like an older version of Al Pacino playing Lefty. Absolutely wild. But there's the image. That's Lefty. That's a solid, like, he kind of looks like Al Pacino. That's Joe Pistone. That's him right there, riding with some real mobsters. Tom Russi. I know that name. Yeah, man. Wild. That was the real Lefty. That was a real, man. I'm telling you, if you haven't seen this movie, you got to go check out this movie. Absolutely. Woo. If I sneeze, that means it's true. That means it's true. That means you got to go see the movie. I'm telling you. It's a great interview. Slow pacing, of course. The gentleman's much older now. Slow pacing interview. But if you just like to hear some intense stories and just hear it from a perspective that you rarely get to hear, this is definitely the interview for you guys. 2 hours, 20 minutes, 43 seconds. Great interview. I think I'm going to do one more episode on this where he tells a little story about Lefty, which I really like to hear. But other than that, guys, I'm out.